Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In this video I'm going to review the Vision solo strings from Thomastik Infeld. I have the strings on my violin since autumn 2021 and I will give you an initial sound check in a second of the very well played in strings. They are now for roughly 5 months on my violin and I played them a lot in the last 5 months. So they are really played in, but I have to say they didn't deteriorate much. This is one point for the Vision solo strings. They are very long lasting as it seems and I hope I can play them further on my violin, but I also have to test other strings as well. If you are interested in an initial sound check of the fresh strings on my violin, you can watch that on my Instagram. I posted there a small video with a sound check, a simple scale with the fresh Vision solo strings on my violin. So here's the sound check after 5 months. I will go later in more detail and also give you more sound checks of the individual strings. But that's just to give you an overview how the strings sound. As I have learned in the past, I have to give a disclaimer in this video that I play the strings on my violin and with my bow and with my technique, of course. And they may sound very different on a different instrument and with a different bow and with a different player. In the end, I just can give you a direction to look out for. There's nothing better for you if you want to know how the strings work on your violin than to test them out. Big thanks go out to polychord.com, who are since the beginning and as always the sponsor for my violin string test videos. You can buy, if you are in Europe, the strings from their shop. It's an amazing shop, polychord.com. Link is in the description under this video. Overall, my experience with the string are very positive. And regarding the price tag of these strings, which is around 60 euros, I must say they are a great deal. Sound-wise, they are overall very round sounding, but give a lot of edge to your instrument while maintaining a singing-like quality and without sounding rough at all. But they have to be handled a little bit with care. You can say like a race car with lots of power, you have to be a little bit cautious with the throttle pedal. Especially the G string has to be handled with care regarding the bow pressure. I will come to that later when I go into the different strings. These strings have a quite above average string tension, but they have a flexible material, which is typical for Thomastik Infeld strings. Playing wise, you get the best out of those strings with a little less bow pressure and a little more bow speed, which is kind of a similar situation with gut strings. My guess it is due to the softer material Thomastik Infeld strings have. The Vision solo string set comes with 2 different options for the D string. One is silver and one is aluminum. I tested the aluminum version, which is, to my eyes, always the better choice for the D string, especially on my violin, because the silver D strings tend to sound a little mushy and a little too fuzzy. But after I'm done with this video today, I will change the D string to the silver D and will test the set over the next weeks or maybe months with the different D string. I will post updates on that just on my Instagram, so follow me on Instagram if you are interested in hearing the updates on the silver D string with the Vision solo string set. Since the Vision solo strings are a synthetic core string, we don't have any issues with tuning stability, for example. They are very fast in tune after you put them on your violin and they stay in tune very well. Under the left hand, due to the softer material, the strings, while being higher tension strings, feel quite easy to play, or let's say not uncomfortable. Especially very high positions are astonishingly easy to play for the left hand. I think the concept of the Thomastik Infeld strings is very different, for example, to the Eva Perazzi strings of Pirastro or also other strings from Pirastro, which are very stiff from a material standpoint. Tension-wise, the strings are very similar from Pirastro or from Thomastik Infeld. But from a material standpoint, the Thomastik Infeld strings tend to be a little softer. Therefore, they work better in higher positions, in my opinion, and they feel always great under the left hand, even though the strings are high tension. This also comes in handy if you play with shifts or with glissandi, which feel great and easy on those strings. Of course, 90% of it depends on your own technique. Overall, the set, tone color wise, is not as dark as, for example, the dominant pro or dominant strings, but they definitely don't lack lower end. The G string also can sound quite gutsy if handled correctly. So let's go into more detail on the different strings with sound samples. First, let's start with the G string. The G string has a very round and powerful sound. To me, it feels like it is a little bit on the more tenor voice side than on the baritone or bass voice side. So especially when you go in high positions, it sounds like a very singing and light sound. If you put too much pressure on the G string with your bow, the sound can break quite easily, I have to say. What I said before, that those strings are better handled with a lighter bow pressure and more bow speed, comes specifically from how you should handle the G string in this set. The other strings are a little bit more normal in that regard, I would say. But the G string has to be handled a little bit differently. But if you do that and handle the G string with a little bit of care regarding the bow pressure, you are rewarded with a very nice and singing sound. And also you have an amazing power reserve with the G string and the other strings as well. I will come to that later, especially on the E string. So let's come to the D string, which is considered to be the heart of the violin. Under the left hand, the aluminum D string feels a lot more sturdy than the G string, which is silver. The D string is also less prone to breaking under bow pressure and also, in my opinion, performs better in high positions, but that can also depend on the instrument. My violin has a lot of problems and a very bad wolf note on the G string in high positions, which doesn't appear on the D string. The D string has a very pleasant but clear and also projecting sound, which I would connect again to the material, the aluminum. The D string definitely helps to project in those lower registers, especially if you have a darker sounding instrument like my violin, and also which tends to sound a little bit fuzzy on the D and on the G string. So for me, this D string is a very good makeup for the lag which my instrument has. It can't completely fix this problem, but it can help a little bit to tweak the sound of lower strings for my violin. So let's come to the A string. The A string is similar to the D string. I think the material is the same. It's also aluminum. But I think this A string is better than many A strings I played in the past in the higher registers, because the clarity is always there. Even if you go past the 4th or 6th position and higher, you have a very clear and singing sound without this fuzziness and scratchiness which the A string in higher positions can sometimes produce. Also, the response in high positions stays very well and makes it easy to switch between the A and the E string in very high positions for difficult passages. Again, the A string feels like a race car. It feels like you have to be very careful with your throttle pedal. For example, the C natural in the first position on the A string on my violin is a wolf note, which can sound sometimes a little bit too loud and screamy with those strings. But in my opinion, this is better than the opposite, to not have the power and the projection when needed. And those strings give you a lot of headroom to project. So let's come to the E string. The E string has a very singing and clean sound throughout all positions on the fingerboard, and also an unbelievable power reserve if you need it. It is very easy to play and very intuitive to the bow. You don't have to work for your sound in that regard. The only critique I would give this E string, which to me is one of the best E strings I played so far, would be that it sometimes tends to whistle a little bit. But I think with E strings that can happen all the time. So regarding projecting in an ensemble, for example, this E string will help you play effortlessly and still projecting well over the lower sounding instruments. To put it in a nutshell, the Vision Solo string set is a very affordable and quality-wise amazing string. It is more aimed towards the soloists, I would say, rewarding the player who can handle a strong sounding instrument well with a lot of projecting power. So it could be a choice for darker sounding instruments to make up a little bit for the lack of power. Keep in mind, you don't lose a lot of quality with those strings while gaining a lot of power reserves, which is to me very attractive. And regarding the price, it is around half the price than, for example, the Pirastro Gold strings. So for players with a darker sounding instrument like me, or players who want to project in a quartet as first violin like me, those strings could really be a good choice. I, of course, will continue testing different string sets for my YouTube channel and ultimately for you, but I can really recommend you those strings, especially if you are a little bit on a budget and if you have a darker sounding instrument and if you have sometimes problems to project. I wouldn't take those strings if I have to record, for example, Bach solo sonatas or even other solo pieces, because there are strings on the market which reward you with a more pleasant sound. But still, the quality which the Vision Solo set gives you while being that powerful string is, to my ears, superior to, for example, the Eva Pirazzi green strings. In the next days, I will test the silver D string also on my violin. You can follow me on Instagram for that update. I will not post it here on YouTube, but on Instagram I will make a short video where I play the same scale I played here with the silver D string. So follow me on Instagram, the link is also in the description. And if you want to support this channel, you can buy the strings on the awesome shop polychord.com, who support me always for those string testing videos. There's also an affiliate link in the description below. I have to say, this is only for the people living in Europe. If this video was helpful for you and you are interested in more violin related content, consider subscribing. Of course, it helps always a lot if you give the video a thumbs up, and if you have a suggestion for another video or if you want me to test a specific string, you can write under this video also a comment. I always read the comments and answer if I have the time for that, and I'm really thankful for all you listeners and viewers. So see you guys in the next video or on Instagram for the update on the D string. Bye bye.